Rabbi, you know what Menga?
So we're reading from Sefer Ha-Aggadah stories about the great sages, great scholars, and we got to Rabbi Meir. It's appropriate when it says Yudalet Biyar, which is his anniversary. This is on page 189 in the first volume of Sefer Ha-Aggadah, and it says the following: Rabbi Meir Yoshev v'doresh b'leil Shabbat בבית הכנסת של חמת. הייתה שם אישה אחת עומדת ושומעת את דרשתו. Rabbi Meir used to give a class on Friday night in the synagogue in Hamat, which is in the north, not far from Tveria. There's a Hamei Tveria. This is what they call Hamat, the hot springs of Tiberias. So, and the woman also joined the Rasha. Usually, only men would stay, but she stayed there. פעם אחת האריך רבי מאיר בדרשתו, היא המתינה עד שסיים. So, and it was a long class, but she stayed till the end. And by the time she came home, the candle was already died. The candle died, and her husband says, "Where were you until now?" אמרה לו, שומעת הייתי בדרשת דורש. I went to the drasha. I was listening to the class, and they said this man was they say here the word vayauto aish leitzan. He was a clown. He thought it's funny what he was going to tell her. He says. He tells his wife, אין את נכנסת לביתי עד שתרקי בפניו של הדורש. He says, if you want to enter my house, you have to go and spit in his eye, in the eye of the rabbi. Otherwise, you cannot come in. So, before we even get to how the story evolved, there's just a couple of things that we have to realize. That we have the practice of lighting candles Erev Shabbat, right? We light the candles. Why do we light candles? To have peace, right? Shalom Bayit. That's the whole idea. That in the environment that existed back then, that the husband viewed his wife as someone who has to serve him, and she has to deliver his wishes. So they say, when he comes back from the Bet Knesset, he has to see that the table is set, that So
what happened along the
what happened along the line? It's still that way for many people. It's just the men now realize that, at least publicly, they have to be politically correct and to be more gentle and sensitive to their wives. But this is
also that they thought that people would be running into each other in the dark, and that would
they had no Shalom Bayit was literally, if you have no light, you can't sit and eat. You don't know what you're eating, and then maybe in some households it's better not to see what you're eating. But the idea of equality is presented in the first chapter of the Torah. Torah says, "B'tzelem Elohim bara oto, zacharon k'ma bara otam." God created them in the image of God, one as male and female, meaning they're equal. But along the time, throughout history, you had ups and downs. It depends on the people, how they feel towards each other. So one thing is this about the candle. An interesting question that comes up once in a while. People say, okay, so now that we have electricity, and all the houses are lit almost around the clock, people don't feel comfortable going to sleep without leaving at least one light in the house. And even, by the way, even if you turn off all the lights, you can still navigate the house with the light that comes from the outside and all the little electrical devices. Everywhere you go, there's a little light there, and then you open the fridge. So, but back then, that's it. If you have no light, so they say, what is the rule today? Maybe we shouldn't light Shabbat candles. I had people ask me that. So the answer is that if you're stuck in a situation where you cannot light candles, for example, in a hotel, today is not allowed to light candles in the room. It's very dangerous, and there were tragedies. So it is okay to rely on the light of the electric light, or some people even have plug-in Shabbat candles for cases like that. Or like an electric light, you light it, and you say the bracha, and you could really light turn on the lights in the room before Shabbat, and say the bracha, Asher Kiddushanu Zavet Tzivanu, Tadik Neshar Shabbat. But I'm not in favor of getting rid of it, and saying, okay, the original reason of lighting it to have light in the house and shalom bayit and comfort is gone, so we don't do it anymore. And why am I not in favor of that? Because once we started this practice, it gained meaning. Every generation, that was a tradition that a woman passed on to her daughter. The rabbis added to that, even though it was maybe a little on the negative side. They said that by lighting the candles, the women atoned for the sin of Hava, who put out the candle, the light of the world. And even if we don't see it that way, but by saying that it connects to an ancient event, that of eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge, the rabbis now gave a meaning to lighting candles. It's not just an isolated concept in time. It is connected all the way back in history to the first woman, and so every woman who, after Havai men sort of lights candles, she adds a layer into that structure, and eventually it's supposed to lead to the coming of Mashiach. So the great insight here is that now all of our actions are connected throughout history. This is something that really runs throughout Judaism in many practices, that we don't see ourselves as isolated, like just a random collection of dots, but there is a linear development from the early beginning of history till the end. That is one thing. The other thing is that once you have that, it really becomes, for many women, that moment is sacred. So I know from my wife, for example, there's a custom of lighting 2 candles for Shabbat. My mother used to light 7 candles. That was the tradition. It's I think from her father, was a Kabbalist. So that's the tradition in my family. So my wife adopted that, and she also lights 7 candles. And then over the years, she started adding neshama candles. These are at my house. Jonathan is laughing because he thought he's coming to Rabbi Baal Nes, the grave where they have all those candles. So on our counter, you see first the tray with the 7 cups with olive oil, and then she started adding nerot neshama, your side candles. So first it was for my grandfather, my great grandfather, and then for her grandmother, and then for other tzaddikim, and now it's 9 your side candles every Shabbat.
9.
And each one of them, yes, 9.
Plus the 7.
Plus the 7.
How about the neighbors?
No, neighbors don't complain. No. As long as they're alive, we don't have to light the candles for them. So at a certain point, I told her, and I said, you know what?
You don't have to turn the lights.
Right. No, I said, light 1 neshama candle, and the rest of the money, because it comes like, I don't know, to $400 a year for candles. I think maybe you should do like a contract with some,
Rabbi, we can
bulk provider.
from long candles,
Yeah.
small ones.
I know, but anyway, she likes the nose. I said, maybe you should, just do 1, and the rest we'll give to charity. But then it's like I paid more attention to that. I realized that for her, the time she takes sometimes half an hour with candlelight. It is really a temple in time. People pay money to a therapist to go and meditate, to talk with a therapist. This is the therapy. It has half an hour to think of each and every person who was dear to her, and with other, known tzaddikim, righteous people that she connects with, and each one of them, there's like a specific dialogue, and you download or get rid of problems and worries, times for blessings. It's an amazing concept. So we're good with that.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing, and I recommend that also. This is sort of it's a beautiful practice that you have at home. You sanctify the Shabbat and you mark that difference. Anyway, and now back to the story with Rabbi Meir. What we learn is that not everybody went to the synagogue. The woman went to the synagogue. The husband is home. And we are talking about the early days of the synagogue. That really, there was it was not so clear. When do you go? Remember the question that we had, the whole story, the debate between Rabbi Yoshua and Rabban Gamliel about Tfilat Arvit, Reshut Chova. Not everybody went. And we say B'Memad Likin, or we say Kiddush in the synagogue. They used to say Kiddush on Friday night, because some people used to work late. They would come to the synagogue from the field when it's already dark just to hear the Kiddush and go home. So a completely different setting. In that setting, the husband is home, she stays to hear the drasha. But it was not very common for women to do that. So when she comes back home, the husband gets upset. He says, what? I'm going to sit and eat in the dark? I have to wait for you? Unacceptable. Go, and he wants her to shame the rabbi publicly. So he's not only upset with her, he's upset with the rabbis. Oh, these rabbis, their ideas. Like, he wants to, right. יצאה מביתה. ישבה שבת ראשונה, שנייה ושלישית. So she left the house. And every Shabbat, she doesn't, when they say ישבה Shabbat, it means a week. So for 3 weeks, she doesn't go back home. Because she cannot bring herself to do that. In her mind, what her husband said is unacceptable. She's never going to go back home. She divorced herself from him. אמרו לשכנותיה, עדיין שורים אתם בכעס, נבוא עמך אצל הדרשן. She says, the neighbor said, you should make peace. We will go with you to the rabbi and see what can be done. כיוון שראה אותה רבי מאיר, צפה ברוח הקודש, עשה עצמו חושש בעיניו. And they say, Rabbi Meir had divine inspiration. He knew why they're coming to him. Or maybe he also heard from the neighbors. This is, probably was a big story. So when they come in, you see the woman with a couple of her friends coming in. She's all very concerned. He says, "Klum yesh benechem isha hachama lilhosh la'ayin." He says, "Is any of you a healer?" And the way they used to heal back then, people who had eye problems, is to say, it's called lahash, to say some verses and then spit in the eye. And maybe it helped in some cases because saliva does have medical qualities. In certain cases, not recommended, usually it's one's own saliva, not for others. But anyway, אמרו לשכנותיה, לכי את, לחשי לו וריקקי בתוך עינו ותהי מותרת לבעלך. The neighbor says, come on, you see, you have the perfect opportunity. The rabbi is saying, go, you tell him that. Still, she's not doing it. She's really a righteous woman. She says, הלכה, וכיוון שישבה לפניו, והייתה מתיירה בפניו. She feels uncomfortable. She says, אמרה לו, ריבי, אין אני יודעת לחוש לעין. I don't know how to do that. The truth is, I don't know. Like my neighbors, they made me do it. אמר לה, אף על פי כן, רוקי בפניי 7 פעמים ואתרפא. And he says, he pretends like he doesn't know anything. He says, no, I know that it will help. I want you to spit in my face 7 times. And she did that. And then he said, אמר לה, לכי לבעלך, אתה אמרת פעם אחת, ואני רקקתי 7 פעמים. Go tell your husband, you told me to do it once, I did it 7 times. So, it's a strange story, right? אמרו לו תלמידיו, רבי, כך מבזין את התורה? The disciples say, how can you do that? You're letting that man disrespect the Torah. I mean, it's not about you personally. The disciples, they say, you as a person, if you want to let go and don't care about your honor, it's one thing. But you represent the Torah, we're your students, that's the leadership, what will people say? אילו אמרת לנו, if we would have known that's the case, היינו מביאים אותו ומלקין אותו על העמוד והוא מתרצה ומתפייס לאשתו. Says we would bring him and put him on they had the amud, the pole that would the people who were sinners would be tied and flogged. It would give them lashes. And then and they say if we would have done that, probably they would have peace. Now, before he answers, the question is, would it work? Probably wouldn't work. They didn't realize that if they would have done that, either they would get divorced, or when he comes back home, it's going to be much more terrible. Yeah, that's a dilemma. I mean, believe it or not, there's something that still happens today. Several times I had a situation like we were in the supermarket, and you see a parent yells at his child, and or being very, very aggressive, and the kid starts crying, and the parent's like, keep quiet, everyone's looking. And he cries even more. Now you want to come and say, don't do that. I could counsel the person if he's willing to listen. But here's the dilemma. I know that if I do that, now the parents will say, oh, you see? You see, because of you, this guy came and told me what to do. Wait till we get home. So what do? I mean, this is really a problem. And I mean, unless you know that you could have an ongoing counseling and therapy with the parents or with the people, you don't do that. So that their approach was definitely uncalled for. And another thing, it's unfortunate, even today, we spoke about that. People file for divorce sometimes. When a woman files for divorce, in many cases, the bedin, the rabbis, will say, "Oh no, you could work it together. You could work it out. Just go, and it's okay. It's okay." She comes and says, "He's threatening me. Things are happening. No, it's okay. Let's work it out." There's a case documented in the Psakim of the bedin in Yerushalayim, the great bedin in Jerusalem, where they only agreed to give a divorce to the woman after the husband pulled out a gun and tried to kill her. And she was for months begging with them. It's like, I need a divorce, I need to separate from him, and they wouldn't listen. So what you need to get really to such a... I mean, even in that case, maybe that's the way the Midrash says, Haya oto ish litzan. He did it he thought it's a joke. He wasn't that kind of bad person, aggressive. But that's a problem that we have to have in mind, that it still happens today. And by the way, not only in Bedin, also in the American court system, if you search for cases of women who were murdered by their husbands, you'll find many cases where a woman asked for a divorce, asked for a restraining order, and she didn't get it. So,
and things happen.
And yes. Anyway, what was the response of Rabbi Meir? Amar lahem lo yeh kvod Meir gadol mikvod kono. He says, don't call me rabbi, not a rabbi. Meir, I'm just a regular person. My honor is not greater than the honor of the respect of Hashem. ומה עם שם הקודש שנכתב בקדושה אמר הכתוב שימחה על המים בשביל להתיז שלום בין איש לאשתו כבוד מאיר לא כל שכן. He says the name of God is erased in order to bring peace between a husband and wife. He refers to the story of the Sotah. When a man suspects his wife of having an affair, of being an adulteress, he brings it to the Kohen. The woman says, I didn't do anything. He says, okay, we'll take this scroll that says the whole story of the Sotah, and God's name is there. You're not allowed to erase God's name. Yet, the Kohen pours water on it and erases the ink into the water. And then she drinks it. Rabbi Meir looks at this story and he says, it's a strange... The whole idea is that if she did something wrong, she will confess before they get to the stage. But Rabbi Meir looks at it and says, you know what happens here? God says, it's not about me. Even if God's name could be erased as long as people have peace between them. He says, if God can do it, I can do it also. And another thing I will add, probably the subliminal message that Rabbi Meir did not tell his disciples or the woman, is the whole story started with a tension between the husband and his wife, but also with the rabbis, because he viewed the whole idea of his wife attending a class as ridiculous. As what do the rabbis want from you? Why do you have to? You don't need that. When he sees that Rabbi Meir's mentality is his Torah is not just about technicalities or commentaries of the Torah, but also about being sensitive to the needs of people and helping him get back with his wife, then this man will also gain a new appreciation, not only of his wife, but also of the Torah and the message that it delivers.
So what is the nest?